be easier if you ask, like, I'll come in after. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Because I'll probably come in just after.
That's fine. And they're being controlled by the guy.
Perfect, thanks.
That's all right. Do you want me to put that? No, I'll stand on the back. Yeah, yeah, that's fine. Oh, I don't have any.
Take my coat off as well. And then we all sit in silence for a bit now.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for being here today. For those of you I haven't met, I'm Tulip Siddiq. I'm the MP for Hampstead and Kilburn, or as I'm commonly known now, the Nazanin MP. That's what I've come to be known as. I wanted to say thank you first of all to the Speaker's Office for hosting this press conference and for welcoming us to Parliament earlier on and welcoming Nazanin, Richard and Gabriella to Parliament and hosting us in his room. I know that a lot of people have to be thanked for this campaign, because it took 6 long years to bring Nazanin back. And I think Nazanin and Richard will both thank lots of people, but I just wanted to take a minute, if that's okay, to pay tribute to my constituents. My constituents here today are an ordinary family who were thrust into extraordinary circumstances, and they rose to the challenge. Richard is known for his relentless campaigning. Nazanin is known for her immense strength in the face of huge adversity. And little Gabriella, who's sitting in the front, is known to be a brave soul. It was a family who never lost hope. And that's why I'm so pleased to welcome them to their first press conference. The reason why they're here is because the Foreign Office and the FCDO officials worked really hard to bring them back. And I thank them for that, but I also want to say that I owe it to Nazanin to ask questions about why it took so long to bring Nazanin back and why the debt wasn't paid for so long, which we know was key to releasing Nazanin. So I've written to Tom Tugendhat, the chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, to ask for a review into what happened in Nazanin's case. The 2 things I'll be asking the Foreign Affairs Select Committee to look at is, first of all, an incident that took place in 2013 when 3 Iranian officials came to Heathrow to negotiate the repayment of the historic debt that we owe Iran, or owed Iran. It's now been paid. They were arrested at Heathrow Airport and then detained in a UK detention centre. I spoke to Jack Straw yesterday, who said he never got to the bottom of why that happened, and Jack Straw said he firmly believes that saga contributed to important people in the Iranian regime wanting to take matters into their own hands and make sure there was more direct action for the repayment of the debt. The second thing I'll be asking the Foreign Affairs Select Committee to look at, if they accept the inquiry, is to look at why there was a deal made last year which then fell through and the money wasn't paid either. And I want to know why the deal fell through, why it took so long to pay the debt, and I also want to look at the wider issue of taking hostages, which Iran has done. And speaking on the topic of taking hostages, Nazanin has today asked Roxanne Tabaz to be on the panel with us. She's the daughter of Murad Tabaz, who is still detained in Iran. Murad Tabaz, his last known address in the UK was in my constituency, but Roxanne is Felicity Buchan's MP. Felicity Buchan is Roxanne's MP, and Felicity is here today. So thank you very much, Felicity, for joining us at short notice. And that leaves me to say, please wear a face covering if you're able to and you're not speaking. Most people aren't, but I have been asked to say it.
Nor are we.
No, but if you're speaking, it's okay. Richard will forgive you this one. And in terms of the panel, I'm going to ask Richard to speak, and then going to ask Nazanin to speak, and then I'm going to ask Roxanne to speak. We will then take questions after that. When you are asking a question, I'd be really grateful if you could stand up and ask a question, and there will be a roving mic that will come to you. Could I just finish by saying gently that Nazanin has just come out of 6 years of immense trauma. If you have very political questions, please direct them to the politician on the panel or to Richard. Thank you. So I will now hand over to Richard Ratcliffe.
Thank you, everyone. And obviously, you don't really want to hear from me, because you've heard from me plenty these past 6 years. And it's nice to be retiring in that sense. It's been a long struggle. I'm immensely pleased and proud of my wife. Proud to have a home. Proud that we start a new chapter and get to be a normal family again. 2 things I wanted to say, really. One, there are lots of thank yous to say, a bit like a groom's speech at a wedding. So thank you to everyone in Parliament. The Foreign Secretary did promise to get Nazanin home, and she did. And that's been a long struggle. Lots of Foreign Office staff have been working behind the scenes. We haven't always agreed. I've been plenty rude enough in public at points about them. But we had a lovely 3 days with them after Nazanin came home. Very nurturing, very caring, very kind people. And they got her home. So it is, for us, over. A new chapter, a process of healing and recovery and going back to normal. And we were just, in the Speaker's office, well, 6 years ago, we wouldn't have been treated with the sort of grandeur and reception that is here. And it is a great honour. I'm really grateful to Tulip, to all of the MPs who have battled for Nazanin. We were saying earlier, one of the things that was really striking on Wednesday at the debate in Parliament when Nazanin was on the plane was actually on all sides, people were pleased. People recognised our injustice, people battled it, pushed the government to be honest, keep the government honest, and I'm hugely grateful for all of that care and support. That came because lots of people in the media kept Nazanin in the light in different ways and at different times, kept our family story in the light and could see the injustice. And it came because lots of people up and down the country followed our story and cared. I think, with campaigning, and lots of people actually sent me, there's a poem by a man called Konstantin Simonov, called about waiting, which lots of people sent me just recently. I confess I hadn't seen it before, but it feels like I've spent 6 years conspicuously waiting, and lots of people have waited with us, and that waiting has kept her safe. And here we are. So thank you to everyone who has been part of bringing Nazanin home and for making us whole again. The other thing to say is before I hand over to Nazanin, of course, it is baby steps. Baby steps for us as a family on the journey back to normal. And I have promised Nazanin, that any questions I don't want to answer, doesn't have to. There is a lovely reunion. I am super proud of her strength and her survival and her grace. I'm so pleased she's back home with me, that she came home to us. We're still negotiating whether Daddy's allowed in the same bed as Gabriella and Nazanin. We'll get there. But yeah, it's I think we'll do this and then we will disappear off and heal a bit. I do feel honoured that we've got Roxanne here today as their family's journey continues. But yeah, this is my retirement day, and I'm thankful that it has come. So thank you all.
Thank you very much, Richard. And that leaves me to ask Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe to speak.
I would like to begin by saying that I am very grateful to whoever has been involving in getting us home, from politicians, media members, whoever has been trying very hard to get our voices heard. I'm grateful. I also want to begin with thanking, I will not be able to thank everybody, but I want to kind of categorize my family in the UK who have been really, really supportive, my family in Iran who wanted to be speaking up, but the situation in Iran is very difficult. You will be under so much pressure that you will not be able to speaking up for your own rights. So they were very much both scared to talk about it, but at the same time willing to do that. But thankfully, we had my amazing, wonderful husband to do the job while we were kind of worryingly and impatiently waiting in Iran to see what's going to happen next. I want to thank all my friends as well in Iran who supported me over the past 2 years when I was under house arrest and when I came out of the tag, to entertain me and keep me upbeat. I also want to thank all the medical team in Iran who have been looking after me. It was an amazing experience to see people who knew me through media, just to be looking after me when I was under house arrest and when I came out of it, just to give me medical support and advice. I would like to thank the members of prisoners, the family members of prisoners in Iran, who I happen to be very, very close with, just like Roxanne's parents and family, who have been really supporting me all along this journey. I want to thank my amazing lawyer in Iran. He has been accompanying me to the court and fearlessly fighting for my release. There is very little lawyers in Iran can do with regards to human rights, but I think he has been just amazing throughout that journey. And the least but not last, my amazing husband, who has been tirelessly campaigning for me, so thank you so much. And my daughter for being very, very patient with mommy to be coming home. So I am so grateful. I also want to mention one thing, and that is, I believe that the meaning of freedom is never going to be complete until such time that all of us who are unjustly detained in Iran are reunited with our families. To begin with Murad, but also the other dual nationals, members of the like religious groups or prisoners of conscience who are, we do realize that if I have been in prison for 6 years, there are so many other people, we don't know their names, who have been, suffering in prison in Iran. So I think the justice in Iran does not have any meaning, because in worst case scenario, you are, being given the unfair trial. If you're lucky, then you'll be picked up by a kind of semi-fair judge, but in most cases, you're not being lucky. The journey back home was tough. I grant what Richard said, to thank the Foreign Secretary. I do not really agree with him on that level. I'm going to tell you that because I have seen 5 foreign secretaries changed over the course of 6 years. That is unprecedented given the politics of the UK. I love you, Richard. Respect whatever you believe. But I was told many, many times that, oh, we're going to get you home. That never happened. So there was a time that I felt like, do you know what? I'm not even going to trust you, because I've been told many, many times that I'm going to be taken home. But that never happened. How many foreign secretaries does it take for someone to come home? 5? It should have been one of them eventually. So now here we are. What's happened now should have happened 6 years ago. I think we all know I'm assuming this is going to be public knowledge of how I came home.
It's fair to assume.
I'm not going to mention, I don't know the details, but what took me home now on the very same day, 17th of March 2022, that is the very same day that I left London, 17th of March 2016, to go on a 2-week holiday, and I never returned on the flight that I was coming back home with. But I think it should have happened exactly 6 years ago. I shouldn't have been in prison for 6 years. And yeah, I think we have gone through a lot. It has been a tough journey. The coming back was also very tough. So you do realize that, coming back to a daughter who is nearly 8, I left her when she was not even 2. There was a whole lot to catch up with Richard and Gabriella and getting to know them better. So I would appreciate, the privacy, and and thank you very, very much. I think I should really thank the media members, because that is how the world happened to know my story. So I am grateful for that. Thank you.
And could I now ask Roxanne Tabas to speak and tell her story about her father, Murad Tabas?
Okay. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Ratcliffe family for giving me the platform to share our story. And I think it goes without saying that we're genuinely pleased for both of you, for your extended family, and we hope to share a similar experience in the very near future. My name's Roxanne, as Tulip said. I'm Murad and Vida Tabaz's eldest daughter. It's been over 4 years now since my father was detained and my mother was put on a travel ban within Iran. As you can imagine, my siblings and I are desperate to be reunited with our parents, and therefore I'm here today to ask the question of why my father, as the only UK-born national, has been abandoned and left behind there. My father was removed from his cell at Evin prison yesterday, but we've only just found out before we started this afternoon that he's been returned to the prison. Contrary to the public statements that have been made, he's not been reunited with his family, and he certainly has not been given a furlough, as was part of the deal that was presented to us. From the outset, we were always assured by the FCDO that my father would be included in any deal that was made to release all of the hostages, so we're truly devastated knowing now that this was not the case. Further to our dismay, we learnt that he'd been left behind through the media last week. To Prime Minister Johnson and Foreign Secretary Truss, we beg you to please stand by your word and bring back both of my parents, my father and my mother. Thank you.
Thanks, Rosa. Thanks very much. I'm going to take questions from the floor now. If you wouldn't mind standing up, a mic will come to you. Even if I know you, and not everyone on this panel might not know you, so please say your name and which organisation you're from. So could I take indications, please? Beth, I'll go to first. You can, yeah, there's a mic.
I'm actually quite loud, so...
We know. No, okay. There is a mic behind you. There you go.
Thank you so much. And Nazanin, it's wonderful. It's wonderful to see you home. So I just want to start off saying that. But it was a long 6 years. It was 6 years where you were, apart from Richard and your daughter, who was but a baby and then a toddler, the government repeatedly refused to acknowledge the link between your imprisonment and that debt, which has now been paid. And while you must be absolutely delighted to be home, I guess my question is, do you feel really angry with the government too, that it took too long? And also, what's your message to political prisoners that are still left behind?
Thanks, Beth.
Thank you.
I think the answer is clear. I cannot be happier, a lot happier than this that I'm here. But also, like I said, this should have happened 6 years ago. So I think that answers your question. That I always felt like I am holding this black hole in my heart all these years. But I'm just going to leave that black hole in my heart. I'm going to leave that black hole on the plane when the plane lands. I'm not going to live for the rest of my life with a grudge over the past 6 years. It has been cruel what happened to me, but I think I do not want to this moment is so glorious for me. So I don't want to, and it's kind of early days that I have come back. So I think it's a bit early to think that, you know, to hold onto that grudge. But it should have happened 6 years ago. I mean, it took a long, very, very long time for the politicians to sort it out. I was the lucky one who, regarding the second part of your question, I was the lucky one who got to be recognized internationally given the campaign which was running. But there are so many other people in prison that you don't know their names, and they have been in prison for longer years than I have been. So I think regarding every person has got the right to be free, and freedom is something which has to be given to people. And I think the world should unite together to make sure that there is no one held either hostage or in prison for something they haven't done.
Thanks, Nazanin. I might do row by row. It might be slightly easier, so I'll come to you next. Thank you. Mike, please.
Carl Dinnan from ITV News. Nazanin, first of all, I hope you understand just how delighted everyone in this country is to see you back. Our hearts have gone out to your family all the way through this, and it's wonderful to see you sitting here.
Thank you.
Perhaps you could just tell us how much you were aware of when you were being held, of what was going on in the outside world and the efforts to get you out, and perhaps also the setbacks. You talked about five foreign secretaries over 6 years. Of course, one of the foreign secretaries who dealt with your case was Boris Johnson, and he said, sitting in one of these rooms, that you were out there teaching journalists, which you weren't. Did you hear about that, and what did the Iranians tell you about what it did to your plight, and how did you feel it affected what happened to you?
I did not have much information about the outside world. Being in prison, prison is a very secluded space. You only have got access to state media, and a couple of newspapers, and there were not much happening. And we had like visits every week. But then I would have loved to spend the time with her, so long as she was in Iran, than talking about politics, if I'm honest. So I didn't know what was going on. If only something was coming up in the news, then I would have known. Otherwise, no. And I think there is a lot to know now that I've come back. So we will have so many nights of chatting about stories. Perhaps at the moment, the necessity of talking about them is less than what it used to be at the time. But I think there were times that I realized that I'm in prison. I've got 40 minutes to see my baby and have a story with her, or like, you know, do something. We used to have lots of stuff in the visit room, like coloring and singing and things like that, and I was not going to miss that opportunity. So I did not spend time following the politics behind my story. And I thought, do you know what? I am powerless in prison. I will see what will happen. And that was how I took it, because that was like a way for me to survive, because I couldn't. When you accept that you don't have, you do not have the means to get to know what is happening outside, then you're going to have to come to terms with that, and that's what I did. So the answer is no.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, Martin Stew from ITV News London. Nazanin, 3 years ago, Richard and Gabriella were handing in a Mother's Day card to 10 Downing Street to try and get your freedom. Looking forward to this Sunday, first Mother's Day for 6 years, you get to spend it together. What are you going to do, and how special a moment is that going to be?
I didn't know that Sunday is Mother's Day. Sorry, the only thing... Richard. The only thing I knew was yesterday was Nowruz, was the Persian New Year. And the only thing that I did was we just quickly put the table together, and with the people that we were with them, we just sat down and I just talked to my family, and I just enjoyed the moment. So we'll see how it goes.
Do that on Sunday.
Yes.
Can I come to you, please? I agree with the mic. I'll do row by row if that's okay. Yeah.
Welcome back, Nazanin. Amazing to see you here. Can I ask how you felt as you walked down the steps of that plane of Brize Norton? Is it too early to say what the future now holds? Is there anything you want to say about the difficult times you spent in jail? And most importantly, how are you?
It's very early to think what is going to happen next. That moment was precious. I have been waiting for that moment for such a long time. And I was overwhelmed, specifically to get to know Gabriella and Richard after such a long time. It was a very, very emotional moment. But I don't know. We will see what happens in the future. I think it's too early for me to think about that. I'm just enjoying the moment at the moment.
Thank you. I'll come to you next. Yeah. Would you mind handing the mic over, please? Thank you.
Natasha Phillips, Tehran Life. Welcome home, Nazanin. Nowruz Mubarak. Roxanne, I'm really sorry to hear about your father's case. My question is either for Tulip or Richard. Once you receive a response from Tom Tugendhat, will you be considering a judicial review?
Shall I take that one? No, probably is the short answer. You know, I obviously at points we've been angry, and you know, foreign of us will know that. We said it fairly bluntly. I mean, behind closed doors, when we were in seclusion, we were talking about, like, it is useful to review what happened and what we can learn from it. I think the suggestion of a Foreign Affairs Committee review inquiry is a really good one. I think there are specific issues in our case, but there's a wider issue about how the government deals with hostage-taking, how it can do it better. It's not easy. The Foreign Office has a challenging job. Iran is tricksy, and you know, everything that's happened to Roxanne's dad in the past 48 hours demonstrates that. I think it would be really valuable for Parliament to take up that challenge and to talk it through. I think that's best done, through Parliament rather than sort of angry lawyers and you know, everyone having to sort of cover themselves. But I mean, as Nazanin said, it's early days. I don't think. I mean, I feel I am retiring from campaigning rather than going into a let's lobby the Foreign Affairs Committee kind of a stage. But I think there's an important point there.
Just leaving it to me, Richard. I see. Could you pass the mic on? Thank you. Do you want to? Yes, please.
My name's Patrick Winter from The Guardian. I just wanted to know whether you... This might be black hole territory you don't want to talk about, but which I understand. But could you describe what solitary confinement is like? What effect it had on you?
I would not be comfortable answering your question. I'm sorry, Patrick.
Can I then ask you another question?
If you're very quick.
On the issue of the debt, is that what you felt held back your release?
Yes,
failure to pay the debt?
Yeah.
And then why do you think it wasn't paid? Sorry, it's one question.
I don't know, but I was told early on that there is something they want after Brits, and they're not going to let me go until such time that they get that, and they were correct about it. So I didn't know the details at the time, but I think it was the week 2 or week 3 that I was arrested, like 6 years ago, that they told me, we want something after Brits, we will not let you go until such time that we get it. And they did keep their promise. That's right.
Thank you.
Hi Nazanin, it's Catherine Philp from The Times. It's amazing to see you. It's quite overwhelming actually. And you seem so well. I think it's easy to forget some of the horrible cruelty that you've been subjected to. And I wanted to ask you about, I know you've had some advice from Terry Waite about how to emerge from this trauma that you've been through. And I just wondered if there was any of his advice that you could tell us that you've drawn some comfort from.
It's very difficult for me to talk about what I've gone through. So I would rather not answer that question. And I think this moment is just coming back home and just enjoying. It will always haunt me. There is no other way around it. It will be with me. Terry Waite is a good example. It is never going to leave you alone. But I think at the moment I would rather just focus on the moment of coming back home. Sorry, Catherine.
That's absolutely fine. Can I just then ask you, have you tidied the flat yet?
I don't know. I haven't been to the flat yet.
We haven't gone back to the flat yet.
Brace yourself.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the third row? Yeah, could I come to you, please? Sorry. Yes, for you. So, and then we'll come to this bit.
Hi Nazanin, just wanted to say welcome home. We're just so pleased to have you here. My name is Lynn Rusk. I just wanted to ask, I suppose, was there a specific memory of home, of your daughter Richard? What was it, do you think, that really helped you survive through this time? What is it that you're most excited to be back for?
My memory faded as the time went by, but the most visible memory was Gabriella playing and Richard getting me a cup of penalty at the time, because I was breastfeeding, so I was having penalty. But that was the most vivid memory that I would have. But then it then again faded gradually, so I had very vague memory of that. We still haven't picked up because we haven't been to the flat, so we're looking forward to that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Stephen Castle from the New York Times. Nazanin, I just wonder, did you always manage to keep your faith and your confidence that you would be released? And if so, how did you manage to keep that strength? And to Richard, please, I think right at the beginning of this you were encouraged to keep very quiet and not to rock the boat and to sort of keep your mouth shut. Do you think that if you'd done so, we would now have the result that we have? And what would be your advice to other people in regrettably similar situations?
Richard, why don't I come to you first?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, and it's a question that all, as families, we all struggle with. 6 years on, I don't think I know what the best solution is, if I'm honest. I think it felt right. I mean, we waited for a month, actually. We didn't go public day one. And then we went loud, and we went consistently loud. And I always used to beat myself up as to what we could do to get it over the line. What was gonna, it wasn't just simple outrage. There was more going on, and our story, your dad's story. You never know what you don't know. I think my advice to any family is to follow your gut, and to be authentic about it. My gut told me that this was outrageous and crazy, and there must be something else going on, and to speak out about it. It didn't tell me to do it on day one. Day one I was bewildered. But once I did. And it was tough for Nazanin's father. because his gut told him not to stir up a hornet's nest. And he didn't feel that it was particularly sensible of his son-in-law to stir that up. Well, it's not like we got her out in 6 weeks. We got her out in 6 years. I am eternally grateful to everyone involved in getting her out, some of whom are in this room, because our life can start again. There were bumps along the way. It might have happened differently. It happened this way for us. I hope it happens soon for Roxanne's dad.
Thank you. Could I go to, yes, please. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. This is a question I'm asking Richard regarding this. As you know, there are other dual nationals detained in Iran, like Murad. Will you really want to retire from campaigning and speaking up for others? Or are you going to carry on campaigning for them?
The short answer is Nazanin wants to come home to a husband and to normal life, not a professional campaigner. I think, it's every family battles in their own way. We all are part of a club that no one wants to belong to. And we do all care for each other and behind the scenes all help each other imperfectly, like all things in life. And I think, for me, we'll see what happens if there is sort of an inquiry, if there is there were various things we were in the middle of with campaigning that we might finish off and carry on, things like Magnitsky sanctions, that are a collective effort that will probably calm down a bit our involvement, but won't disappear. But no, my job is to recover, and for us to be a normal family again. It's not to be sitting here in front of you guys for years to come.
Thank you. Could I go to the lady? Yeah, please.
Hi, it's Tessa from 5 News. It's wonderful to see you home, and wonderful to see Richard with such a big smile on his face as well, because we've all seen him in
grumpy
different circumstances. I wonder if I could ask you, did you know that Richard had it in him to campaign and to be so unswervingly dedicated? And did you learn much about yourself while you're away too? And second question, there's a wonderful photograph of you when you get home and you're holding Gabriella and your head is on Richard's shoulder. And I wonder if you could tell me how you felt when that photo was taken.
No, it is surreal to come back and to be holding my husband and my baby, who's not baby anymore. But also I think, I'm not going to answer the first part of your question, but the second part of your question is, I did go through a journey to get to know myself a lot better, to get to know my strengths and my faith more than anything else. It was a journey with a huge price. But I think it is something that not many people in the world would experience. So looking back, we paid a huge price for it, but at the end of the day, it made us a lot closer. We made so many good friends and we got to know families of the ex-prisoners or prisoners who are at this moment in prison. So I think it made us a lot closer to each other and a lot stronger together. But we paid a massive price for it.
Thank you. I'm sorry, we're really short of time, so if you could only ask one question, I'd be really grateful. Yes.
Hello, David Bond from the Evening Standard. Can I ask, was there a moment or were there moments where you thought you were about to be released and you might be able to come home that were then dashed, and how did that feel?
Yeah, there were many moments that I felt like that. I felt like I was left behind. I assume this is exactly what Murad is feeling at the moment, that, two of us came home, he was left behind. So I fully understand what he's going through at the moment, because it is disappointing. It kind of, it puts you in a situation that you can easily lose faith in everything. I have been through that, I think, twice over the past, maybe 3 times over the past 6 years. That is why I think what we should be doing for Murad is something that shouldn't have happened to him. He should have been on the same flight with us, Nicole, and it should happen to the other dual nationals. So I think it is frustrating, it is disappointing, but then in my opinion, it was my faith that made me go through it.
Yes, thank you.
Henry Bodkin from the Telegraph. A question for Roxanne. Do you have any idea from the government whether they have any bargaining chips in respect of getting your dad home? Are you hearing anything from them? Is there anything practically that you would urge them to do to help speed up the process? And are you frustrated perhaps that your dad's release wasn't linked to the payment of the debt? There was an opportunity there. Thank you.
I haven't been appraised of the situation in terms of what's being negotiated at this time. We were advised that he would be on an indefinite furlough, which turned out to not be the case. And we also were advised that my mum's travel ban would have been lifted as well, which is also still not the case. I'm not a politician, so sadly I can't advise anyone in the government what they can offer or negotiate, but we just urge them to bring them back home. They've been there a very long time.
Would you mind passing the mic to Rosamund, please? Yeah, thank you.
Hi, it's Rosamund from the Sunday Times. Congratulations, it's wonderful to see you, and congratulations, Richard. I just want to know, the last few days before you came home, when did you feel secure in the knowledge you were coming back? And Richard, when was that feeling for you as well?
Oh, only when I got on the plane, not before. Because there has been so many games in the past that I did not feel like I should really let myself believe the moment. And I think it was just the moment that the airplane, the stairs went up and it took off that I realized that, oh, the moment is real.
Yeah, same for me. I think there's a lot of games that happened that we didn't air and perhaps won't ever want to air. But, there's a lot of uncertainty about what's going to happen in the last stages, and our experience and many other hostages as well. We've had false storms before. We clearly were close to it. It felt like it in the last few days was getting closer, but probably there was always a gap between what I thought was going to happen and the Foreign Office was saying, listen, it's moving. I was like, well, until it's happened, it hasn't. Well, now it has, and it's a lovely feeling.
Sophia. Yeah.
Hi Nazanin, massive welcome home. It's great to see you. Just a quick one. How was your first weekend of freedom? Is Gabriella getting used to having mummy home? And I wondered also how your mum and dad were back in Iran, and if you ever felt that in a million years perhaps you'd be able to travel back there and see them again.
Well, she has been upgrading mummy to be with her and downgrading, sadly, daddy a little bit. And rightly so. Making up for the past. I haven't seen Gabriella for the past 2.5 years because she was in Iran with my parents, and she left Iran in October 2019. So lots of catching up. It was lovely to get to hold her, to braid her hair, and to brush her hair. That was a moment that I really, really missed. My parents were relieved. I must admit that I felt like my mom would be very, very upset. She was not. She was so happy that this whole thing is over. The only thing which was kind of bothering my mom and dad was like there was my presence in the flat because I was living with them for the past 2 years. And I think it was my absence which was bothering them more than anything else. But they were very, very much relieved that I'm back. Regarding the traveling back to Iran, yeah, you know my opinion on that. It took me 6 years to come back. I think I will be very, very cautious about when I'm going to book a ticket to go back.
Did you want, okay, so yeah. Could you hand the mic please to the gentleman behind? Yeah, you've got the mic, yeah.
Thank you. Jonathan Ruckman from Channel 4. Welcome and happy Nowruz, it's great to see you.
Thank you.
As you know, we're hearing that a new Iran nuclear deal is quite close. You have a platform now to say what you think perhaps should be in it, because there, as you said, there are a lot of political prisoners in Iran. And I wondered what you thought the bare minimum was in terms of releases of your fellow prisoners so that others don't get trapped.
I think it would be a very difficult question to ask for me. I'm just going to look at it in my own perspective, and that is I have been a pawn in the hands of the two governments over the past 6 years. I did follow the story of JCPOA for the past 6 years very, very closely, and that is because I was told many, many times that my story is linked to that, which shouldn't have happened. I don't think anybody's life should be linked to a global kind of agreement on whatever that is, whether it's nuclear, whether it's environment, or whatever. Every human being has got the right to be free. And what really upset me all these years is my life was linked to something which has got nothing to do with me. And we went through ups and downs of, the country is getting very close to each other and then falling apart, and then there is a war, and there's a... Why do we have to pay a price for that? I think the remaining dual nationals in Iran, their story should not be linked to any political / international agreement. Human rights should not be something that people would look into as a side, kind of story when they're doing big deals. It has to be on its own, independently, a big issue to be solved. So I was the lucky one who came home. There are so many other people who are still, remaining in Iran in prison, and I think their story has to be separately dealt with and not with any international agreement.
Thanks, Nazanin. Yes, would you pass the mic on? Please, could you be quite short, because I'm conscious I'm keeping them a bit longer than I said I would.
Hi, I'm Amy Gibbons from PA. Nazanin, it's wonderful to see you back. I wondered if I could ask you a little bit more about your return to the UK, and specifically some of the first things that you did. So the first place you went, the first meal you had, the first TV show you watched, if you did. And also you talked about how you dreamed about doing the school run. I don't suppose you've had a chance to do that yet, so you're looking forward to it. And then lastly, what do you think will be the most difficult thing about adjusting to life back home with your family?
I haven't done any of those. I haven't got home yet. I was basically living in a suitcase over the past 6 years. I'm still living in a suitcase. So my husband has been picking up my clothes. I don't know, I think it would be, the school run is something that I will look forward to, because I want to get to know her friends and the community better. But I also think we will have a lot of adjustment. Getting to know each other and, getting to get into each other's rhythms. So we will just take it very slowly.
Yes, please.
Hi, Natalie from Ham and High. It's a very local question. First of all, just so thrilled that you're back, and the whole community is going to be really thrilled that you're back, marching with Richard, protesting and everything. You might not know, but do you have plans to stay in London, or are you thinking we might just kind of get out of London and start a new life somewhere else?
No, I think we are planning to stay in London for the time being.
Yes, please, in the back. Could I go to you first, sitting down, and then I'll go to... Yes, okay. It's working to be doing it row by row, so yes, please.
Hi, Nazanin. Tom Howard, GB News. It's obviously been such an awful ordeal in Iran, and you say that there are so many others that had your situation too. Is it a little worrying that the government has been seen to pay Iran in exchange for people being returned to the United Kingdom? And is there a concern there that it might encourage more hostage-taking potentially in the future?
Yes.
I'm going to jump in on that, Tom. There is a moral hazard. Without doubt, a legal debt is not a ransom, but the guys that took Nazanin will be patting themselves on the back and saying, "We did well. Let's, squeeze Roxanne's dad. Let's try that." That's undeniable. It is a challenge for the government, for the international community generally, to deal with state hostage taking. That can't be done just with carrots. It can't. It's a balance, and it needs to be worked out. And one of the conversations you've heard me say on your shows, on others, is the government needs to be brave, and being brave also means being tough. That's not a conversation to have right now, but I think in fairness, the Foreign Affairs Committee review, should they choose to do one, giving them a mandate where they haven't actually said they're going to do one. I think that'd be a really valuable way of exploring all that, because there are no easy answers to this, and my view has had a lot of mileage. Not everyone agrees, And actually, how does one deal with tricky policy questions? It takes a village, just like getting Nazanin home. So I think it's worthwhile having that conversation in a brave and open and honest way, and we'll see where that takes us.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm very conscious of time. I am keeping them from very long. Gentleman, the man who was very eager, and then there's 3 more journalists, and then that's it, please. Thank you.
Theo Ashwood, LBC. Just a very short question to you, Nazanin. Were there any moments of kindness from those guarding your cell in prison, and how do you feel towards those who kept you captive?
Yes, but I'm not going to answer that question. I'm so sorry.
Sure. Right. Lady standing up, please. Yeah.
Hi, Lucy Fisher from Times Radio. Welcome back, Nazanin. Thanks in part to Richard's remarkable campaigning, your face is really well known in the UK. And I wondered if you'd found so far that you're being recognised a lot in public, and also how you think you might cope with, frankly, your fame.
Well, can I just answer that question? Gabriella told me on the phone one day, I was still in Iran, that, Mummy, you do realize that you are very famous, and then it's me, and then it's Daddy. Okay, fine. And then I said, okay, it's not good to be famous, because, you want to have a normal life, and, just to have a... And she was like, oh, you're not going to be famous forever, maximum a week. So we're bracing ourselves for a week of fame, and then we're just going to have a normal family.
Very good. And then there was 2 other journalists. We had, who was the next person? Yes, thank you.
Hi there, thank you. Hannah Somerville from Iran Wire. My question is also for Nazanin. About the friendships that you developed in prison, just on those ones left behind, is there anyone you can name that you became particularly close to in Evin? And if so, do you have any message you'd like to convey to them now?
Yes, I've got... There are people who came out of prison all the time that I was inside. That was in Iran under house arrest, and then the tag came off. I was still in Iran, so they thankfully came out of prison. But the conservationalists, if I'm correctly mentioning the name, the family of Murad. So Murad, Sepide, Nilofar, Sam Rajabi, and Human, and then there is Siamak. The male section, we do not have any contact with them, but we got to see their families, and we get to be very, very close with them. So, like I said, the meaning of freedom is not going to be complete until such day that they are all outside. And at the moment, I am with them in spirit, but I am not going to let the torch be down until the day that they are back home to their families.
Thanks, Nazanin. And last question, please.
Hi, Eleanor Langford from Politics Home. Ultimately, Liz Truss is the Foreign Secretary that got you back. Why do you think that she succeeded where her predecessors failed? And do you feel confident that she'll be able to get other dual nationals like Roxanne's father home?
I think I would rather not answer any political questions. It is very difficult for me to...
Yeah, Richard?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think a number of Liz Truss's predecessors were personally vested, tried hard, tried different things. I'm really grateful to the current Foreign Secretary that she got it over the line. And feeling a little bit guilty about giving her quite such a hard time when she took the job on and we camped on her door. But maybe that worked. And I think, I don't know if it's confidence, but absolute hope that she can get Roxanne's dad back, and the others. And I think we should be grateful to her for having done it. And let us hope that becomes a pillar of her foreign policy going forwards, that she keeps Brits safe, and that she makes sure that, whether it's in Ukraine or Afghanistan, all the other places where people are vulnerable, that it is something the UK does. It looks out for people.
Okay, can I say thank you? Everyone's been very well behaved and it's worked very smoothly, but I'm just going to ask the panel if there's anything they want to say that they didn't get asked about. So, Roxanne, is there anything you'd like to say? No. Are you okay? All right. Richard?
I in my long list of thank yous, did not mention any of the legal teams who did huge work for us. And some of whom are sitting in this room and have been very nice about the fact that I had to. But so, for all of the different legal teams, who did a good job of keeping the government honest. It's an important part of the conversation, is what actually should a government do in this context? what should it be. I think, you know, human rights often gets treated as some sort of nice, cosy rhetoric. It's really important, our rights, and yeah, just for keeping us all safe. So we are deeply indebted for everyone that helped that happen.
Can I say thank you? And could I just say thank you once again to the Speaker's Office, who worked really hard. Sasha, Alice, and the whole of the Speaker's Office really worked hard, and my team as well. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes in an MP's office, so Liam and everyone worked really hard. I would really ask if you wouldn't mind giving the family their privacy. They're going to go now. Roxanne and I are around if you want to ask any questions, but Richard and Nazanin will be escorted out now. Thank you all very, very much. Oh, Gabriella, sorry, of course, and Gabriella. You're going. You're going with Mummy and Daddy.
We're all going to go now.
Sorry, I wasn't going to leave her behind.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, you got...